Hello everyone and welcome to another tutorial for Adobe Premiere Pro. Today I will talk to you really quickly about slow motion. If you Google it, you will probably find a lot of different ways to do slow motion. The one technique that I am going to show you today is a very simple, very fast technique that involves a very little amount of math. First, I have a clip here already on Adobe Premiere and I'm going to create a sequence. But the real trick begins even before you shoot. Like, notice this clip here. This clip has 59.94 frames, 60 frames per second, and this is the real trick. If you want a high quality slow motion, my advice, and the greatest advice you can probably get, is to shoot in a frame rate higher than the final frame rate of your clip. The math is pretty simple. In this case I have 60 frames per second, which means that if I have a final video with a frame rate of around 30 frames per second, I will be able to reduce the speed by 50%. That means going from 60 frames per second in the original clip to 30 frames per second and get decent quality slow motion without looking like the frames are dropping or the frames are like stopping. Well, if you go the other way around, if you have let's say a original clip with 25 frames per second, that would mean that if you scale it down to 50% speed, you will have 12.5 frames, and those 12.5 frames will have to be spread through the 25 frames of the clip, which means that some frames will have to last 2 frames. Let's see an example. I will create a sequence. I will create a sequence of 25 frames per second, and I will drag the original clip with the 60 frames to the sequence. Premiere will ask me if I want to change the sequence settings or not. I will say no, and here I am. Well, this is a regular clip, and I want to change the speed to around let's say 60%, because this is a 25 frame per second sequence, and I have a 60 frame per second sequence. I will stay above the number of frames per second, and my slow motion will look decent. You see, it's not as good as I wanted, but there is no dragging, there is barely any frames clearly stopping. Let's try another thing. Imagine that you want the speed to go around 20%. 20% will mean that you will drop way below the 25 frames per second, and your images, your frames will be repeating themselves. Like, you know, it looks like this is more of a stop motion than a slow motion. Let's see why this is happening. Well, when you zoom this to show you almost frame by frame, you can notice that you can go like 5 frames, and that's when you will get your first movement, because you are asking that the speed of the frames drops way below a number where you will get one frame move one frame at a time. Well, let's just see this. If I go to the 80%, the 60% speed that I used before, here's what happens. You see, every frame has movement, you know, so we are not losing anything here. They are just moving a little slower. So this is the trick. Shoot always with higher frame rates than the one you are going to use in the final clip. If you have no other option but to shoot in the same frame rate as the one you're going to have in the end, I would say avoid the slow motion or use frame blending. You have to right click on the clip right on the timeline and you will find frame blending right around here. This will make your slow motion look a little smoother, but it can cause a little blur and it doesn't always work. So the main trick here, don't you ever forget, film above the frame rate that you want to use in the final clip. That's it for this time. Don't forget to subscribe. Eventually, if you liked the video, just press the like button and share it if you think it's going to be useful to someone else. Thank you very much. See you next time.